Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another review, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the next installment of Bandai's budget-friendly, beginner-friendly line of Gundam model kits, which is entry grade. This right here is the entry grade Wing Gundam, or the Wing Gundam TV version. So far, this line of kits has been absolutely incredible, especially considering what they are. These are all sub $10. This one right here is about $7 or €1. That is the Japanese price. This particular kit does not require tools to build, comes on only 3 runners, and is super simple to put together. And the payoff, well, look right there, it speaks for itself. It's an absolutely beautiful 1/44th scale kit with nice premium features, including color separated eyes. These kits don't, of course, come without their issues, which I will dive into throughout the review. Anyway, this video right here would not have been possible without those awesome people over at HobbyLink Japan. There is a link down there in the description. Now let's wind back in time a little bit to the build. So first up, when it does come to the entry grade kits, this right here is the box. As you can see, it's not the most dynamic or awesome Gundam box around, but it is to the point and kind of gives you an idea that you're going to be getting a more simple kind of Gundam kit. Taking a look around the box, first off, we've got the parts list. As you can see, it's only 3 runners and they're all separated up easily into the aspects you're going to be put together. It says no tools are required to assemble the kit, even the details are recreated with colorful parts. We see the color separation of the head and the fact that we've got some weapons in here as well as movable wings. Around on the other side of the box, we've got an image of what the finished kit will look like, and speaking of getting it finished, let's bust it on out. Now, like I mentioned, this is a kit that does come on just 3 runners, so there is just 1 bag of plastic in here. On top of that, we do have a bit of a manual, which is just a fold-out style manual, which is pretty much to the point, but I will mention, this is a transforming kit, but there is no instructions on how to transform it. Weird. So when it does come to the actual runners in here, there's only 3, but they are all right to the point. Runner A with all of the colors on here, yellow, blue, red, and a kind of almost pearlescent green, which makes up the various kind of shiny or camera aspects to the kit, being the eyes and the gem in the chest. We've got a runner of white plastic in here, very nicely molded, lots of nice panel lines to line up, and one interesting aspect is the full face is just outright fully molded here, including those Gundam wing ears. When it does come to the grays in here, this is that nice lavender style gray, so not your typical Gundam gray, this is more of a Master Grade Mark II kind of gray, aka it's got a purplish hue, which is pretty nice. But before you actually whip out your nipper, or if you don't actually own a nipper, you might want to stop for a second because you don't actually need one with this kit. This kit is designed like some more of the entry-level Gundam kits where you don't need tools, you can just pull everything off the runner. Now, if you've never seen it before, these kits have been like this all the way back to the entry-grade Gundam RX-78-2, which you don't need any tools at all to put it together, that it's so easy to put together you could have put it together inside of the bag. Not easily, but I did it, if you want to check that out. However, the caveat to this is you do end up with these kind of fairly noticeable nubs. These are simply dealt with a file or sanding stick. Either way, I prefer to nip it out with a nipper just to keep it as clean as possible. Now, one little bit of a warning, I will mention this is a kit that doesn't like to be taken apart once it's put together. There's a lot of kits out there that are fairly easy to disassemble once they're assembled. This is not one of them. I put on the knee backwards by accident, which is a simple thing to do. A lot of GUNPLA kits make sure you can't put anything on wrong, as in there's something that just prevents you from doing things during the build to make them backwards. This isn't one of those kits. Knee went down backwards and was really hard to get back off. Build it right the first time. As usual, I started with the legs here, and the parts count per limb and the kit overall is very small, but they do layer over each other in a very nice sort of way. The lower leg is just 2 parts, but the way the thruster attaches on before you build up the knee and then the knee slots into the back of it is so expertly done. Again, it clicks in ridiculously hard to remove once attached. The rest of the leg just builds up as multiple simple little parts. The hip joint is a cup in ball. Again, this has been an issue throughout the line so far with breaking. And the ankle is a simple design which attaches into the ankle armor, ball joints into the lower leg, and ball joints into the foot. So a lot of ball joints in this kit. Super simple waist joint in here. You can separate the 2 front skirting so they move independently or keep them together. They do attach in smartly, a cup per each ball, locks in from the top, and then you've got a front and rear armor. And again, the gray comes from underneath, especially in the front crotch area, extremely nicely. The torso is probably the longest part of the build in this kit. Again, it layers up really intelligently to get you some nice color separation to the chest machine cannons, the yellow of the chest gem zone. The chest gem is simple, it just pops in like so. Some people are upset that it's not clear, that it is this kind of pearlescent look, but it works out extremely well. The yellow is color separated very intelligently, and then you add in some red, build the waist, Again, ball joint, ball joint, ball joint. Shoulders attach in with a kind of C-clip style attachment from the side. Ball joint shoulders, clavicle armor, and ball joint neck. Jumping onto the arms, and again, this builds up very, very smartly. 2 layers of white, the yellow attaches down from above, and the excess yellow is covered by the blue. Forearm builds up out of 2 parts. The elbow joint is unique. We've got one section which attaches into the forearm, then a tab-in section from above. And the absolute worst part about this kit, I do feel, and any wing kit, is those silly yellow claws. They kind of get in the way of everything, and they don't attach on too well during this build, and do feel like a lost risk because they are quite likely to pop off. They only hold on with pressure. The shoulder joint up here is a little funny as well. It kind of attaches in like a barrel section into the upper arm armor, and this holds the arm and the shoulder together, attaching onto the torso. Some issues with that later on. Around back then, we've got the wings. Again, nice color separation for the grey coming through from underneath. Yellow onto white for the major part of the wings. The blue part is asymmetrical to separate out both wings, and we do have a lot of moving parts in here, but I will mention the way the largest aspect of the wing attaches onto the blue-red section is kind of weak as well and likely to fall off. Finally then, they C-clip on for a little bit of a flap, and they attach onto the back, and this seems to be the standard high-grade style twin peg adapter. Finally, to give this kit life, it's time for the head. This is very intelligent. The green color separated eyes attach into the red section on the back here. The face mask then attaches on, and the red and the green from underneath protrudes. You attach the V-fin up into the upper part of the head before slotting in the main part of the head into the upper part of the helmet. Again, very, very intelligent, and I will mention I did cut off the safety flags on this kit, because as the Space Marines say, suffer not the safety flags to live. So off they went. When it does come to the final assembly, all in all, this is absolutely mesmerizingly brilliant, especially when you do consider the price range. Now, the usual issues are here. It's all ball joints pretty much everywhere, so it does mean sometimes things like the hips and the shoulders will like to pop off, but overall it does hold together extremely well. Actually, maybe too well at times. It's very, very, very tight, and the end product does look beautiful. Now, I will mention I do panel line it a little bit later on, which brings it really to life, so that's a recommended step. Out of box right here, a little bit on the plain side. Finally then, when it does come to the equipment, this is very, very simple, but works out really well. We've got the Buster Rifle, which is just 2 halves that attach together, but it still looks absolutely perfect. And then we do have the shield, which is just 2 parts yet again, just red onto the white like so. Again, very, very simple, but the payoff does look absolutely phenomenal. So like I mentioned a little while ago, I did panel line it, but I do feel like that's something to talk about in the aesthetics, which we'll talk about right now. So now jumping on into the aesthetics, and there's the Wing Gundam out of the box, and this entry grade kit is really, really impressive. I still have it equipped with the weapons. I'm going to pop them off now in a second, but as you can see, it just looks so good. So if you're looking for a fairly inexpensive 1/44th scale kit that will just look really nice up on the shelf or with some of your other high grade or real grade kits, this one does look awesome. Like I did mention though, I did pan line it to bring out some of the details, which I'll mention in a second. But yeah, I'm super impressed. Of course, it does have its issues. For example, if you're someone who does want to pose your kits a lot, get lots of action kind of poses out of it, that's not what this kit is all about. These are quite fragile. The plastic is fragile too, and this does have some other issues like that bit just popped off there. This happens a lot on me, and that's the little talon parts like to fall off. But yeah, let's talk about the pure aesthetics first. So that right there is what the entry grade Wing Gundam looks like out of box, just snipped and snapped together. And as you can see, overall it is quite nice, but a lot of the details, especially in the white, are completely lost in the out of box build. Overall, the colors that you want to see are there. Fully color separated eyes, you've got the nice pearlescent green inside of the chest. Again, that has been dividing opinions a little bit. And we've got the yellow where we want it, the beautiful shade of blue, and the red as well. Overall, the colors look great. And the type of plastic in this kit, which is very extremely light, I will mention, almost has a matte look to it. So it has that matte top coat effect without actually having to do that, which is pretty cool. However, though, the biggest issue for me straight away was just all the lost detail on the white plastic on this kit, and I guess everywhere else too. So basically what I did was I just disassembled this right here, grabbed a panel liner pen. This is the poor type or the extra thin. Basically the way this works is you just touch it against the panel lines in the kit and it runs through them. Now the panel lines in this kit are very nice. The pinstripe ones take to panel lining very well. There are some other aspects that don't take to panel lining too well either, but those are definitely in the minority. Those are the kind of little edges and triangular parts and the thrusters that are here and there. But according to the box art, it looks like Bandai does want you to paint or fully fill those in a black. Now, before I actually get into the aspects of this kit's looks with the panel lining and without the panel lining, I will mention one thing. I do not recommend using the extra thin panel liners on this kit. Now, I'm not sure how this is shown up in video, but that right there is a crack. Now, this is something that is sometimes prone to happening with particular panel liners, like these particular extra thin type ones or Tamiya's extra thin panel liner pod. So basically the chemicals in the panel liner can eat at the plastic and break it down. That isn't usually, oh my god, yeah, this is quite flimsy. But yeah, that isn't usually an issue with Bandai's high-grade plastic, but the lighter, harder plastic in these kits seems to take a bit of a beating from it. But yeah, with that warning out of the way, there's the side-by-side comparison of this kit without lining on the left and with some panel lining on the right. As you can see, it makes a world of difference, especially in the whites. A lot of the detail on this kit is lost. A lot of the actual panels on here are molded panel details because there isn't that many parts in the actual build of this kit, so there's no natural panel lines. You have to fill them in to bring out the details. When you zoom on into the face, you can see that's an area that really has a lot of tiny little detail that does need to be filled in. However, once again, I will warn that some parts don't fill too well with panel line markers. You might be better off painting some aspects, and don't use any solvent-based panel liners without a top coat first. You might be better off sticking with the felt tip pens. Either way, it does make the kit look a whole lot better. Anyway, with this kit snap built and panel lined, there is the overview. This kit has absolutely captured the wing pretty much perfectly. Besides the dark colors that are missing from the vents, this is almost 100% color accurate, which is absolutely phenomenal if you consider just how little parts are in here. The way they kind of weave through the actual build, like the yellow in the chest going from the chest gem all the way out to the vents as one part, is just so expertly done. Bandai have made this an absolute beauty at a really low price. This kind of layering of parts is here and there in the kit as well, which works out extremely well. We've got the Vulcans in the upper chest. Those are color separated into the nice gray in this kit, popping through from underneath. Same goes for in the crotch. We've got those thrusters, again, colors separated perfectly. Around the back of the legs, we've got some nice verniers. Again, these aren't separate little pieces. They're actually attached in to the knee joint very smartly. The yellow sections on the shoulders, again, these run throughout the shoulder out to the back, so you do have color separation both sides. And finally, we do have color separated eyes in here. These are in that kind of pearlescent, almost nuclear green, as opposed to the kind of usual Gundam green we see, but the color separation here, phenomenal. But yeah, like I mentioned, overall the color separation is fantastic, even down to the grey in behind the vents in the chest coming through from the grey underlayer. Absolutely fantastic. Some people don't really like the particular shade of color on the gem in the chest, which is the same color as the eyes. That can be easily painted, or apparently it is compatible with the high grade piece. However, I don't hate it at all. I think it's quite nice. We are missing some kind of colors here and there that the box does show, like some gray inside of these elements. And by the way, that isn't messy panel lining, that is cracking. So there is quite a bit of cracking throughout this kit from the solvent-based panel liners, so you definitely want to avoid using those. Also, some aspects don't fill in too well, like these here or these here, with flow type panel liners anyway, and you might be better off with the felt tip variants. We are missing any kind of colors in the head cameras, that is the front and rear, so there's nothing there. And I'll also mention, because of the seam line style, the panel liners will run into those too. So again, just don't use the solvent based ones. If you really have to, make sure the parts are separate before actually doing it. So do it before the build. So when it does come to the model kit sins, aka nubs, seam lines, and mold lines, again, there are some noticeable seam lines here and there in the kit. The panel liner definitely highlighted them, but they are noticeable in some aspects. Again, not the worst at all, not really visible from the front, which is what you want to see. But there was one that I did find very noticeable on the top of the head. Once I got the panel lines in there, it's not so bad, but when this was freshly built, when it was just plain white, you could actually see that very obviously. We do have some on the top of the shoulders as well, but yeah, this is just one of those things that happens when it comes to a low part count. Now we do have seam lines as well on here and there. Again, for the most part, they're disguised quite well, all things considered. And nub marks, besides the little ones you'll have poking out if you do just pull it off the runners, well, the plastics on here are super easy to clean up, so I've got pretty much zero. So now jumping on to the size comparison, and there it is beside your average sized 1/44th scale Gundam, that being the high grade Gundam Revive on the left and the real grade Gundam 2.0 on the right. So as you can see, a little bit on the smaller Gundam side, but not quite as small as you'd expect from a wing kit. And speaking of wing kits, next up there is the real grade wing. I have no idea where my high grade is. I might just have to go buy another one, build it, and review it again. Next up, the high grade heavy arms, high grade Death Scythe, high grade Shenlong, high grade Sandrock, high grade Death Scythe Hell, and moving through some main Gundams, here's the high grade Strike Freedom, high grade Gundam EX, high-grade Gundam Aerial, and the high-grade G-Quacks. So now jumping on into the accessories, and here's everything that comes with the entry grade wing. So as you can see, it's not a whole lot, but by entry grade standards, it's pretty much normal. What we get in here is the Buster Rifle, as well as the shield. So no extra hands, no beam sabers, none of that, just the basics. So first up in here, when it does come to the hands, we've just got some standard holding hands, that is all. So there are no hand options inside of the box. These are all made out of one piece and one piece only, which will limit their compatibility with some other high grade or other 1/44th scale stuff, because, well, you can't open them to attach in anything that can't slide in. So speaking of what we've gotten here for sliding into the hands, first off is the Buster Rifle. As you can see, it's just molded all in one color, which is that kind of purplish gray, and it is just made of two parts. The only thing that makes the two parts different from being fully symmetrical is the fact that the handle is attached onto one. That's pretty much it. As you can see, the molded detail on here is quite nice, perfect for detailing up and adding some color. And speaking of color, this is not entirely color accurate out of box. So if I just pop it off to the side here and pop up the image of what wing looks like in universe, you can see that it's meant to be yellow on the bottom, and those little kind of energy capacitor or battery sections on it are meant to be in a bit of a darker color. There is also meant to be some dark along the barrel here too, which it is missing. So it does look nice, but out of box, a little bit on the plain side, needing some detailing. So when it does come to getting this into the hand, you just slide it down from above like so, nice and simple. I'll also mention now I'm going to get it up in the air for a bit of a pose. The 3mm hole for attaching this is just in the crotch, old school style, and a lot of people always ask me during these reviews, what is the stand that I use in the reviews, and that is Good Smile Company's hexagonal simple stand. 3 of them cost about €12 or dollars, so they're only about $4 or euro a pop, so they are pretty cheap, effective, strong, and you can move them around whenever you want if you want to take a load of video or footage, as opposed to Bandai's own options, which are a bit bouncy. I will mention, and this will happen with most action bases, but the butt flap here, the way it's kind of lined up, will cause this to not be tilty back that much, so it'll always be at a bit of a funny angle on this. Maybe Bandai's ones can move back a little bit more, but yeah, a little bit limited because of the placement. I will also mention it at this point right here in case I forget to mention it later on. The overall posing experience on this kit is a little bit on the funny side. Once you get used to it, it's not too bad, but all the ball joints on this kind of like to dislodge while you're actually moving it around. It's not the great poser. Well, it poses well, but getting it into the pose is not too stable. There's some shoulder joints that pop too, which I'll mention later on, as well as some wing joints. So overall, getting it into poses can be a bit, well, a fight against parts falling off. Overall though, it poses fairly decently and looking pretty cool with the Buster Rifle. So the next accessory we have in here is the shield. Again, this is just 2 parts, which makes it incredibly impressive. Red on the front, we've got some white as well as some detail. It does get a little bit washed out. You might want to shade in some of the raised bits a little bit. Sometimes the really direct light can kind of hide that a little bit, but as you can see, there are some nice little ridged parts right there. We do have a fin up front, and as far as I know, in a lot of kits, this is in green down here as a kind of little sensor or something for the bird mode, but in this kit, it's just 2 colors, but overall, looking pretty good all around. When it comes to getting this shield into the hand, it's simple enough. So we've got a square peg here and it attaches into the square hole of the hand, just like so. Again, I will mention the wrists on this, the shoulders as well, like to pop off every now and then, so it can be a little bit irritating when you're attaching it on and off. When you do get used to the overall parts that are a bit loose though, it should be no issue. Getting into a little bit of a pose again, a little bit on the awkward side. There isn't a crazy amount of articulation on this kit, but you will get 1 or 2 nice poses out of it, including this one right here where it's doing a little bit of a block. Finally, just talking about the compatibility a little bit, these kits are designed to be at least fairly compatible with high-grade kits. So if you pop off the backpack right here, you'll see we've got the average 2 holes. Let's just see if it works out with something else. All right, so stealing the backpack off the aerial rebuild, just like so. So there we go, those 2 pegs. Tried into the back of wing, and yeah, absolutely compatible. So if you do want to do a bit of a kit bash, you won't have any issues. The exact same should work the other way around, so if you do want to steal Wing's backpack for a high-grade kit, as you can see, it should pop on perfectly. So if you want yourself a little bit of a wing aerial, you can do that. Again, the hands on this kit don't disassemble, so that will limit high-grade compatibility. For example, right here, the aerial rebuild has a handle that you have to disassemble the back of the hand to get it in and out, so you won't be able to use something like that. So next up, jumping on to the articulation and the usual comment on the build. So overall, well, this is a kit that's not going to fall out of a pose unless there's like some outside forces on it. Even still, unless you're moving this stays together rock solid. It is a solid kit, it's just the kind of joints that give you some issues. Anyway, usual pose? Overall, like I mentioned, some joints do like to pop in your pose in this kit. However, if you are mindful of them when you're actually moving it around, that is more than likely not going to happen. I took my time with this, slowly eked it into the pose I wanted, and I got nothing popping off whatsoever. There are some incredibly good joints in this. The ab crunch is very, very nice. The shoulders are very well designed, besides at the upper arm, and overall I got a nice pose out of it. I can't drop too low because of the ball joint hips, reducing the actual downwards movement into the lunge, but the ankles are good, knee is good, overall not bad at all. Considering this is a budget-friendly kit, great actually. Alright, so now moving through all of the articulation part by part from the head down. We do have a double jointed neck in here. That is a ball joint up top and a ball joint at the bottom. So there's the head looking all the way up, looking all the way down and side to side. We also have a little bit of a tilt on there too, but just like all the ball joints on this kit, if you do hyperextend it, it can pop off relatively easily. Not too bad in the neck though. The shoulder joint here is a bit of a wild one, so I'm just going to pop it off first so you can see what's going on inside. So you do have a ball joint attached to a C-clip. The C-clip moves just like so, so that is quite simple, but at the same time gives you some nice range of movement, especially to the front. This attaches via a ball joint into the shoulder, and the ball joint itself is quite good. It's good and solid. You get your full rotation all the way around, and you can move the arm up and down ever so nicely because of another joint in there. Yeah, that bit pops off a lot. I'm just gonna leave it off. But yeah, what does tend to happen a lot is this right here. When you move this arm here, kind of funny, now that I'm actually trying to show it, it's not happening at all. So I guess it doesn't really happen all of the time. Maybe something wasn't locked properly into position. But yeah, everything's, well, we'll see what happens in future anyway. But anyway, back to it. We've got a dropping mechanism that is for the transformation. We've got a full spin at the upper arm right here. I'm not sure if I actually showed it, but there's the arm all the way up, so not too bad. And when it does come to the bend at the elbow, that is what you get. It is a little bit on the limited side, and this part here does get in the way. Sometimes you have to move it up and down to get it out of the way, and that is likely to pop off. As for the wrist, it's just a regular rotation and spin. So the ab crunch in here is super impressive, especially to the back. It can really move back like so. Towards the front, it's not as incredible, but the overall range of motion is really good. We've got side to side crunch ever so slightly in here, and the full rotation all the way around 360. Front skirting armors are on ball joints, so they move up and down a little bit of side to side if you do separate them off the runner. The side skirtings, this is a little bit more limited because it's a straight up ball joint, so back, forward, and again can work its way off if you move it around a lot. The butt flap, limited, non-moving, on premium butt flap, does get in the way of the legs moving backwards a little bit. Speaking of those kicks, there's the kick all the way up to the front. There it is all the way out to the back. As for the splits, because they are ball joints, this is quite limited. And we do move these legs out and in a lot. These are quite likely to pop off. Again, now that I'm actually showing it, it's strangely enough not happening, but it does happen at times. Actually, that isn't too bad. Again, don't over abuse the hips. Anyway, full rotation all the way around. Next up, there is the bend at the knee, and that is very, very nice. So one more time, there is the bend, double jointed bend, not too bad. Then down at the ankle, it's a ball joint up here and a ball joint down here, and a ball joint holding on this armor. So we do get a bit of a point to the feet downwards. That's the movement up, down, and the side to side pivot is incredibly, incredibly good. Around now the backpack with the wings, it's a flapping mechanism only. So these are C-clips, which allow them to move in all the way like that, and then out the way like so. Then we do have 2 points of movement up the way, so we've got the outer wing section as well as the inner part as well. So these two separate quite a little bit indeed. So you do have a little bit of expressive movement, not a crazy lot, but enough to get some nice, wide, spread wing poses. So when it comes to one of the weirdest things about this kit right here, it's the fact that this does have a full transformation to bird mode like you're seeing right now, but it's not mentioned at all inside of the instructions. There isn't even a QR code to the website to show you how to do it. It's just such an odd thing to leave out. Entry Grade has done this sort of stuff time and time again in the past, just leaving things out entirely. But yeah, just kind of based on an educated guess as well as the high grade instructions to transform it, I just kind of went through the motions. In case you don't know how to do it, you can just follow along with this and you'll know how to transform your entry grade wing. Overall, it does look very, very nice in bird mode, I have to say. I am impressed with a bit of a gimmick in the leg, and overall it does the job and does it well. As for how you do it, just grab your old wing just like this right here, First off, you need to rotate it 180 degrees at the waist, just like so the legs and the torso and head are pointing different directions. Then you rotate the head at 180 degrees so it's pointing backwards with the legs. You need to remove the hands for this transformation, so off with those. Next up, you need to transform the leg. So I removed the leg just for the sake of clarity, but you don't have to remove it. So there is a nice little bit of a bending mechanism in the knee. In order to do this, you kind of just bend it like a lightning bolt. That is basically bend the knee all the way back like it was bending normally, and then bend the upper leg forward. This pushes the thrusters into a backward thrusting position, which is nice, and then you just point the toes downwards, just like so. Next up, you need to bring the claws and the forearms down as far as they will go, then bend the arms forward just like so the claws are facing forward. Basically bending the elbow till the claws touch the upper shoulders. At this point, you probably should have done it already, but you drop the shoulders down into this position right here. Spread the wings out to their maximum wingspan like so, bringing them all the way forward. And next you need to bring the shield and the buster cannon into the mix. Now the actual slot for attaching the buster cannon is right here. So again, full transformation in box. You just put the handle into this slot right here. There's two little segments around towards the top of the shield which attach into the backpack. This attaches on securely just like so, and there you go, bird mode. So there is a full transformation to bird mode in this kit. It just for some reason doesn't mention it on the box or in the instructions whatsoever. Anyway, that's what it looks like. It does look quite good, especially from above in the usual wing sort of way. From below it does look like a Gundam, kind of with its head turned all the way around with a shield on its face, but that is par for the course. Overall, this works out quite well. Definitely impressed by the gimmick of the thrusters pointing downwards in the knee when you do bend them. Overall, it works well. This is a fully functional and fully featured 1/44th scale wing. I am impressed. So anyway, that right there is it for the review of the entry grade Wing Gundam, and this to me is X-Platinum tier and a phenomenal buy without a doubt. Now I will mention when I throw up the scoreboard right here, it did kind of get a little bit bumped up to Platinum tier from what would have been more in the Gold tier zone, just because of the value of this kit. Just like the rest of the entry grade line we would have seen so far, this is incredible and definitely feels to be the best one so far. Now when going through the list right here, aesthetically, this hasn't been bumped. I feel for the price point and for the scale, this is a 5 out of 5 beautiful kit. The only colors we're really missing are just shading that you can do with a pen liner. You need to get some ink into the whites to really make them pop, but the detail in there is incredible. The overall silhouette, the molding, color separated eyes, all of the detail and colors is all phenomenal, nigh on perfect and so impressive. Again, $7 retail in Japan, mind blowing. The scores do drop a little bit then from there on out. When it does come to the articulation on this kit, it's not incredible. At the same time, it's not that bad. I find the only thing that really lets this kit down is the hips. Ball jointed hips always do kind of limit in-air poses because you can't kick the legs out too far or rotate them while they're kicked out. So that is a little bit on the awkward side. Overall, you will get some very, very nice poses, but it is a bit limited there. The shoulders, the neck, the ab crunch, the knees, the ankles are all fantastic. Just let down a little bit by the hips. Next up, when it does come to the accessories in here, you might think 2 things getting 3 out of 5 is a bit crazy, but not by entry grade standards, where we've gone, well, with nothing in the box before. The original RX-78-2, nothing with it, just the RX-78-2. So to have the main armaments in here is great. You've got your shield, you've got your beam rifle, both look very nice, albeit a little bit on the not fully color separate side. And some people may be a little bit disappointed by the fact that it comes with no beam sabers. I'm not, personally. I never put beam sabers on my kits when they're in my display. Never. I always give the main armaments only. So to me, it's not a big deal. To you, it might be. To me, not at all. Finally then, when it does come to the build, throughout the review, I did have a lot of parts falling off. But I'm not sure what I did a little bit later on. Maybe I actually attached things on properly, because by the time I got to actually the articulation section of the video, nothing was falling off anymore. The weird issues I was having with the upper arm, the weird issues with the hips, I guess they clicked in properly this time. Maybe when I disassembled it to panel line, I didn't realign or attach things properly. Otherwise, the build is absolutely impressive. It holds together great. The plastic in here is delicate, so don't use any solvents with it. And the layering of the colors is just absolutely exquisite. Great kit. Honestly, whether you're a veteran GUNPLA builder or an absolute beginner, this is a fantastic wing kit. Now, I don't have my high grade to compare it to, sadly. I don't know where that got spirited away off to, but as far as I can remember, I think I prefer this kit right here compared to that particular one. Anyway, we've got a full transformation and everything inside this box. It just doesn't tell you that it's there. Again, incredible. Anyway, this video right here wouldn't have been possible without those awesome people over at HobbyLink Japan. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to come back for more GUNPLA reviews, and I'll see you next time. As always, this video right here and every single video I make would not be possible without each and every one of you guys who watches this video, and special thanks at the end of this video right here to those who support on the channel memberships as well as over on Patreon, including Caleb Engelhart, Joe, OG59061, Scotty Thomas, and Simon.